So what we have here is just a simple rig. I haven't parented this in yet. I want to go ahead and parent this guy into whatever would be the most logical, since the neck, if I rotate it, wouldn't move this guy, but the rib cage would. I'm going to just go ahead and parent it in there. So this is my collarbone. And if we look at this, we've got names like joint 16, joint 1, etc. And I could, of course, go ahead and label these to their names, but there's a system inside of my that will allow us to do this. So we've got right here, we've got some joint labeling, and I skipped over the mirror joint, but we'll come back to it in a moment. I'm just going to tear this off and tear this off. I'll put this one over to the side here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to start labeling these things. So I'm going to label this left, since it's his left arm. It's on my right side of the screen, but it's his left arm. And I'm going to label this collar. So I'm actually clicking on these things. I know you're not seeing it flash or anything like that, but I'm clicking. I'm going to go with this guy and call it arm. I didn't bother doing his fingers yet. Let's go to the root. I'll label that in the center, and I will label it root. I'll go with this one and call it leg. There. And then these guys, we're just going to hold down Shift, click that to open up the entire hierarchy here. This is going all the way through here to that one. So I'll click him, Shift click him right there. And we'll go with spine, and he will be neck. Actually, so will he. Actually, no, we'll call him head. Head. I'll call him head as well. And now that I've got all this, basically what's happened here is as I select these guys, I'll just go into their attributes, I'll close this. You'll see it's set to center, and it's called spine, and I click on this one, left shoulder, etc. Now I can go ahead and select these guys and go under display and animation, and we can go joint labels, and that'll show you basically what's happened. All of these things have gained specific labels, which can help us with symmetry, weighting, and that kind of stuff as well. But what we can do with these is we can rename these. So you see it's still joint 7 here, and I could go ahead and rename it manually, but I can just use this and say rename joints from labels. And so of course it's going to call it center root and left collar and left shoulder, and it's labeled all of them automatically. So I get elbow, hand, and then I could have gone in and done the fingers and so on and so forth. So that's pretty cool. If we had gone in and manually put in names for these things, it could have done a basic guess itself and labeled them based off of those. So now that I have this, I'm just going to go ahead and grab this guy, and I'm going to go skeleton, mirror joint, and I've got left collar, so I'm just going to go ahead and say search for capital L EFT and replace with capital R IGHT. I'm going through the YZ plane. This is basically the center axis. So if you want to mirror an X, you look for the one that doesn't have an X in it, and that will give you the left and right. We're going to keep with behavior so that they rotate independently. Mirror. And so with this, if I go ahead and mirror behavior, you notice when I rotate one out, the other one rotates out as well. Whereas if I had just mirrored the other one, if I'd chosen the other option, when I rotated this one to the right, this one would also go right. So I've mirrored that, and you notice that it's got labels on it, but it's still labeled as that other side. It's it's got right shoulder on it instead of left shoulder, so there's that. So all I have to do with these guys right now, because they're left side, is just go back into that skeleton and then joint labeling, and I'll just call this the right side. And as soon as I do that, you see that all of these labels have turned green, yet they've maintained their names, so it's really easy there. So I can go ahead and do this skeleton mirror joint. You can see behavior rather than orientation. It's renamed them and then relabel it, right? And that's it. Everything's been named, everything has proper labels on it, and it's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn these things off. So it's just a toggle, again, animation, joint labels, and you can turn those off again. So one last thing I'm just going to show you quickly is inside of Softimage you have different shapes for bones. So we have our draw style, multi-childless box or none to basically hide these things if we want. But what if I want to have a different shape for this bone? A lot of the time what you guys would probably do is create some kind of control object which you would sit out here, and you probably end up putting a constraint on it. Something that you can do instead is called shape parenting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a curve. Just something really basic. I just had clicked and it didn't make the right size. So just corrected that, and we're going to basically attach this as a control to something. So I could throw this on the hips to be sort of a hip controller or mid-spine controller or something like that. You can create any kind of shape that you want. Basically what I want to make sure of is just that I just go ahead and set it to the origin for the moment. And I'm going to parent it to this guy. So if I were to go ahead and say P to parent it, and I want to go ahead and throw that off, what I get here is a indication of what this would essentially look like right there. So it goes directly onto that object. And as a child, well, if I go ahead and click on this guy, he doesn't really control anything, he's just himself, and if I click on this, well, both of them appear at a highlight. Well, I want to make it a child in a different way, and if you've seen the other videos, you'll note with a lot of objects, if we turn on shapes, we can have the DAG object as well as the shape object which exists underneath it. And that's what I want to do. They basically treat each other as the same thing. So if I were to select the polygon mesh, of course, it automatically selects the DAG object. It doesn't necessarily select the shape. So if I were to do this, it would automatically select the joint if I shape parented it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to basically take the shape and put it underneath there. So center spine is the guy that we want. And this is where it becomes important to label these things afterwards. So I went ahead and labeled these, but I didn't go ahead and correct that they've gotten all the same name, so I just have to add a number on the end of these. So just simply go in and just add a 1, a 2, 3, 4. And that takes care of that. I'll call this one tip. And so I've got these guys now correctly labeled. And I'm going to do a shape parent. So I want to go from this guy to the center spine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a quick little script. And when I say quick little script, I mean really quick. I'm just going to write parent -s -r semicolon. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And since I'm going to be using it again and again, I'm just going to take that, save it to my animation shelf, and I will save script to shelf, parent S, and now when I grab this guy and the center spline and click that, what happens here is you notice it's no longer part of this group. In fact, I can throw this thing away. It's just garbage. It's no longer required. And when I select this, it automatically selects that joint, so it becomes an easier handle. I still have control over these points, so if I want to actually control vertices, grab those, and just go in component mode here. Change the orientation. So something like that. Go back to object mode. I now have a control which sits outside my body. So even if I didn't have the X-ray joints on, I could go ahead and grab this, and I know it's going to control the portion in there. So you can do these for IK handles, you can do these for joints, you can do this for pretty much anything that you want. And it's a really simple little command. You create it once and then you forget about it. It's going to be there forever. So that's the basic essentials. You have your display options like the X-ray joints, which is on by default. And that's a basic overview of joints in general. So we'll do another video in a little bit that will cover some other features, but that's it for now.